Reserve. The root of all our evil, it begins with the Federal Reserve. Hey, yeah, well, let's go back in time when everybody was so proud of a man.
I'm Tommy Salmons. This is year 0. Today, you get me. It's just me, guys. I had some cancellations and scheduling issues, and then it's just been a very busy few weeks, and so we'll talk a little bit about that here in this episode. I just want to kind of put out a solo episode, let y'all know what's been going on in my mind, what I'm thinking about, like the way that I'm attacking problems, and just try to put out something positive, So I think it's gonna be positive. That's the goal. The goal is positivity. So there's so much going on. It's the news cycle can be quite overwhelming for everyone. And when you're podcasting, and if you want to be even slightly effective or informed, have some sort of understanding of what the hell you're talking about, you're having to constantly keep up with things. And because I work full time on top of podcasting, and then I'm also so busy here at the house that it becomes very, very difficult to stay up on things, and it becomes overwhelming, and sometimes it just you reach a point of burnout, or you just need to take some time and just breathe, and just kind of step back and say, okay, there's a lot of craziness in this world. And the news and is designed in such a way that it's constant fear, and your brain's constantly shooting off like signals, like basically like putting you in survival mode several times a day whenever you're going through these things. So it becomes it's very exhausting. It's very tiring when you're if you're not reading about World War III, you're reading about the indoctrination of children and basically eugenics policies is the way I look at it, or food shortages, or gas prices are out of control in certain areas, which I find odd. It's stable. Gas is stabilized here. I don't know if y'all are dealing with in other parts of the country. So get in touch with me about that and let me know what it's looking like in other parts of the country. But gas has been sitting right around $3.79 a gallon for probably the last 3 weeks. It's much higher than it was this time last year. I think this time last year it was $1.88 or something like that. Like it was either just under $2 or just barely over $2, but it was right around the $2 range, I guess. So that would it's definitely more expensive than it was last year. Food prices are obviously going up. That's one of the most obvious things. And it's weird because you walk into the grocery store, right? And one day there will be no cold meat, so there will be no lunch meat or ham, turkey, all that lunch meat and stuff like that to make sandwiches. And then you'll see they get a stock of that in, and you go down another aisle and there's like no tomatoes or something. It's really odd. It's kind of weird the way that things are staggered and and operating at the moment. and have been for quite a while. It's been like this for, I'd say, probably about a year. I've been noticing it's going in this direction where they'll be out of bacon one week and then they're out of sausage the next week. And then, they get the bacon in, but the sausage is gone. And then the lunch meat is gone, but they have the sausage and the bacon. So it's been it's been strange watching it. And it hasn't gotten, at least where I'm at, it hasn't gotten any worse. But it's not, hasn't recovered fully, and don't know if it will. So yeah, you're paying attention to all these things, and you're constantly watching them, and it gets to be overwhelming, and you got to take a step back, and you got to breathe, and you got to give yourself a moment of clarity. And a lot of times when I'm doing that, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll work in my yard and on projects that I have here. So I'm building a big ass, I mean, it's big for what it is, but I'm building a duck house out by my pond for my ducks, and stuff like that. It's that's been something I've been working on a little bit at a time. Whenever I have, a day off or whatever, I'll go out there, and I knocked out the frame one day, and then the other day I went and did the siding. And I don't know if y'all can hear that. My dogs are harassing my wife, and she's trying to drink her coffee. But so finding a hobby or whatever, it's I think that's very important. But whether it's gardening or building these projects, and I'm still, my focus is still on the problems at hand, and I'm thinking about all the horrible shit I see going on around us, and I don't know, man. It's really one of those things that it just, like I said, it's exhausting. It gets tiring. It's just like, man, I don't want to be. I'm a pretty happy, have fun, kind of, just laid back, relaxed, have a good time kind of guy. That's kind of the way I am. I'm sure y'all understand that by listening to my podcast, and I like to have fun with my guests and laugh, even when we're talking about some of the craziest, most insane shit. I do like to crack jokes and, have a good time. And I think that's why y'all listen, is because I kind of like talk about this shit in some absurd fashion in some ways. But one of the things we did that episode on Faith, Liberty, and Praxis, Caleb Brown's episode show. We did a roundtable about Carl Jung and the undiscovered self. And while reading that, I had this thought. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I'll put a link in the show notes. I think he's going to send me the audio, and I'm going to release it as well. But even if he doesn't, I'll put a link in the show notes. And he was having issues with the file, so if he doesn't send it to me, it's not because he's flaking on me. He was having issues converting the video to audio. It was saying that the file was corrupted, and he was having a hard time trying to get it sent. So it's not intent. He's not like being a dick or anything. He was just he offered to send it, and I said, yeah, that'd be cool. And then he was telling me he was having some issues with it. So either way, I'll put the link in the show notes so that you can go and watch that, because we talk a little bit about that. We talk, I guess, about a little bit over an hour. We talk about that book by Carl Jung, The Undiscovered Self, which is, if you've never read Jung, his stuff is like extremely dense, and even for like, 88 or 90 page book, whatever it is, it's just full. It's just packed. It's every paragraph could be its own book. It's kind of that idea. Like, that's the way he assumes that the people reading his books are familiar with his ideas and his thoughts, and he just shoves a lot into a very small area. But when he's breaking down in that book, he's breaking down the differences between religion and what I guess I would call, I think I called it fanatical ideology, but he's explaining how, like, a collectivist or a totalitarian, like, ideology becomes a religion to its followers, and it really exemplifies something that a lot of people don't want to talk about, and that is that ideas can be used as weapons. Ideas can be harmful as they take shape and as they evolve, and they're not violence. I mean, that's obvious. Ideas are not violence, but ideas can be harmful, and to what extent does one go to battle these ideas that are harmful, and harmful to your family, harmful to your children, harmful to your grandchildren, especially if other ideas aren't being allowed? Right? So we have a situation right now where Florida passed this parental rights and education bill, and the left went full berserk and started calling it the Don't Say Gay bill, which was the most absurd shit I ever heard, because the bill literally doesn't say gay that I saw. And I read the damn thing, and I didn't see the word gay in there, so I guess they're technically correct. It doesn't say gay in the bill. But they're trying to make it sound like the education system is being shaped to be oppressive or discriminatory towards gay people, when that is absurd. It has nothing to do with anything that's in the bill. And so they want, so I think it was Baltimore, and some of these other left cities, I think, are following suit, just like Texas is kind of following suit on, and Alabama, I think, even went a little bit further than Florida on their version of the bill. I haven't read their bill, so I'm not going to get too in detail on it, but I haven't read the Baltimore bill either. I believe it's Baltimore, where they're saying it's mandatory. They have to teach sex and gender and transgenderism and all this, homosexuality and all these things in the school system in these cities. So it's this ideological battle, and the one thing that they removed Christianity, prayer, the teaching of morality from a faith-based point of view. They've removed that from the school systems, and have installed this secularist, materialist worldview and morality, and this kind of relativist morality, this subjectivity, it's like subjective morality or a postmodern morality in its place, and created this totalitarian religion around around these ideas and around this, wokeism or whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's so many different terms for it. I don't know if any of them are completely accurate. It's totalitarian, definitely, in its ideology and in its form and its shape that it's taking, in the way that it's being utilized. And there've been places where these left activists and I'm not gonna give any names because I can't remember the person's name, but I've heard these people saying like, what makes you think that parents should be why should parents be involved in the kids' education? It's like saying, why should parents be involved in making health decisions for a child? Leave it up to the experts. The managerial class will take care of it. They're not your children. They're the state's children, and the state will raise them. And this is something we've been warning about. Now, overwhelmingly, parents have supported the bill in Florida because, parents love their children and they want to be involved in their children's lives and they want to know what's going on and what their children are learning. It kind of makes you wonder, I don't know, have parents stopped sitting down and doing homework with their children? Are they not interacting with their children on their school lessons anymore? I thought that was kind of the norm. That's what you're supposed to do, right? You sit down with your young kids and you help them get through their homework, and it builds a bonding experience. It's just like when they're small, you go to their room when they're going to bed and you read a book to them. That's part of parenting. At least I thought it was. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Have teachers stop sending homework home so that the parents can't see what the children are learning or what they're doing? I don't know what's going on here. Apparently there's a cultural problem, though, where parents have been disconnected from their children. Now, I don't know when this happened or how it happened. I'm sure it was a slow creep that occurred. But yeah, I mean, not that long ago, my kids were in elementary school, and I was, at the house living with their mother and married to their mother. And yeah, we would help them with their homework. And we would read books to them at night. So we knew what was being put into their heads. And it wasn't like we were aware that, that there was a potential for an ideology to be force-fed down the children's throats. I wasn't even political at the time when my kids were young. I didn't have the energy or the time to deal with politics. I really didn't even care about politics. So but it was just part of parenting. It was what you did. You spent that time with your children. You built that bond. You made sure they were learning and they were being educated and they understood the lesson. And I had my youngest son is dyslexic, and so he had problems reading. So we had to spend extra time with him and to teach him how to read. And it was very, very frustrating. Whenever it comes to this, it seems like the parents have somehow been disconnected from the child's curriculum in the last, I guess, 10 years or so. And now that the parents are making it verbalizing and making it a issue that when the COVID lockdowns came around and we were helping our kids with this virtual schooling and we were seeing what they were learning, we don't appreciate what's being put into our children's heads, and we think that there should be a change in curriculum, that indoctrinating our children into these ideologies and is not the way forward. So we would appreciate being more involved. And so they're trying to get more involved, and they're trying to put a stop and an end to the indoctrination and the brainwashing of their children. And the left is freaking out. They do not want the parents involved. I've heard it said, I've heard Tim Pool repeat this, and I've heard other people say it too, that the left doesn't have children, they have yours. And that's it. They look at a child as a collective ownership, to be raised by the community, be raised by the state in order to operate and function as a good little cog in the machine. And if that child, or if that cog is defective and won't operate properly to make the machine run, then that cog needs to be destroyed. And so you have, I mean, we're so close to the advocation of utilization of violence on people that dissent, that it's insane. I see the censorship and the cries and the screams. You get the 2 minutes of hate, right? And it's everyone's doing this. It doesn't matter the ideology. I'm watching it and I'm like, you people are crazy. Like, you've lost your fucking minds. Every day it's got to be a new outrage. Every single day it's got to be a new outrage. I mean, we got to be pointing the finger and screaming and yelling about civil rights and how this person is racist and this person is fascist and this person is communist. It's like, man, just calm the fuck down. Like, there's a lot of bad people, but you at this point in time, for the most part. Now, I know there's censorship on Twitter and on Facebook, and they're making it more difficult to battle ideas. But at this point in time, we still have the ability to battle ideas with ideas. The problem is the ideas you're battling, you're trying to battle faith-based, cultist, religious totalitarianism with logic and reason. They did not come to their conclusion through logic and reason. You're not going to logic and reason them out of it. It's not feasible. That's not the way that it's going to work. And you have this clear divide between like I said, like you have like the Baltimore kind of, where you have to teach transgenderism and sex to children, to the Florida, which, I mean, to me isn't even that extreme. The Florida bill, I didn't think went far enough, honestly. I thought it was a little minor. If you're going to get involved in that, then you're going to have to, I don't know, I don't think that teaching any child about sex is the state's responsibility. And we're talking about state operatives, state employees that are teaching in the schools. And I don't see how it's their responsibility or any of their fucking business to talk to children, especially minors, about sex. If anybody else just walked up and started talking to a minor child about sex, it would be considered creepy. And I don't look at teachers any different than any other person, just like I don't look at cops any different than any other person. Obviously, if we take into consideration the lessons of John Taylor Gatto, we know that the solution is not, more laws that give the state the power to teach. It would be to get the kids out of these indoctrination centers. Unfortunately, that's not the reality of the situation. So we have to look at how we want to deal with this. Now, I think what I would like to see is, if there's going to be a public education system, which obviously there is. I mean, it's so baked into the cake, kind of like a police force or a fire department is. It's just kind of baked into the cake. It's part of what is expected and it's part of societal acceptance, and we're going to have to address that subject, and we're going to have to address it in a way that makes sense. So I think that very strict parameters on the education system is necessary, that they stay within the bounds of, reading, writing, and arithmetic, like very, very strict parameters on what they are teaching children, that they don't step outside of this. And, they dress sex ed up as part of health. Well, nah, I guess. But I don't know, is it the school's job to teach a child health? I mean, they're the ones who taught the food pyramid, right? Have you seen like how well it's gone for the U.S. with the schools teaching health? We're like the fattest nation in the world. We got a serious obesity problem. We got a diabetes problem. It doesn't seem to be working, right? Well, maybe it's not their job. Maybe that's the parents' job. Maybe the parents should take on more responsibility when it comes to health. Maybe the education system should be, I don't know, limited to education and objective reality, and only the objective reality, and let the parents deal with the subjective nature of gender and sex and pleasure. That would be my thing. So again, I don't think the Florida bill went far enough. I think there should be more strict parameters on what is allowed to be taught in schools, and the way that you would monitor and police that is more involvement of parents, whether it's running for the school board or talking to their children. I mean, communicating with your children, help them with their homework, understand what they're learning, make sure that they're not being told not to tell you things. I don't know how that, I mean, between kindergarten and third grade, which is what the Florida bill covered, the child is still very close to their parents at that time frame. And I think that you could easily talk to your children if you just made a point and a habit of communicating with your child. I never had an issue talking with my kids, no matter their age, because, I had made it habitual that the way we would talk to each other were like adults. I'm not going to talk down to you. Yeah, I'm going to teach you things, and I'll discipline you when you need to discipline. I'll tell you what you did wrong, yada, yada, yada. But I'm not going to talk down to you. I'll talk to you like you're my equal, because ultimately I want my child to develop mentally in order to care for themselves and be responsible. And so I want them to understand what responsibility looks like and what's expected of them as a responsible adult. And so giving them the tasks and the education of an adult at a young age, I mean, again, it's based upon their level of maturity. So it's not like I was sitting there like showing them, telling them about the birds and the bees when they were 2 or some shit like that, right? But I treated them like human beings, as equals. And not without the understanding that there was a hierarchical structure within the family, but you can understand that there's a hierarchy and still not talk down to somebody. It's like at my job, right? My manager, they don't speak down to me. They talk to me as an equal. I'm a man. They're men. Like, we have conversations as men, but I do understand that within the structure of the way that the company is organized, that there is a hierarchy as well. So, like, you can have both things, and there's a healthy way to deal with children in this way. And the children must be taught to understand that the parent is the authority, the ultimate authority over their health and safety, their well-being, their education, and their morality at this point in time. And the state is weaponizing the schools in order to replace the parent. And it's been going on for a long time, and it's something that a lot of people have warned about. I think it was Malcolm X had this wonderful quote, and I'm probably going to fuck the quote up, but it's something along the lines of, why would a person pay their enemy to educate their children, or something like that. And ultimately, the state is always the enemy of the person, of the people. It's, and I'm not saying this to be some kind of like quacky autistic libertarian. Like, what I'm trying to say is the inherent goals of the state are to grow in power and shrink freedom, while the goals of the individual is usually to increase their own freedom and their own autonomy and separate themselves from the state. Like, you separate yourself from your parents as you get older. Like, there more of a divide occurs, not because like you don't care about the parent or the family, but because you're becoming more independent and more autonomous. And so as you grow and you mature, you want to put a divide. You want to put limitations on the interactions between yourself and your parents. Like, they are not to be involved in your marriage. If they are involved in your marriage, then your marriage is probably not going to be a very good marriage if your parents are dictating the way your marriage operates. And that's a very, that would be very cancerous for any relationship. So that's what the state is constantly trying to be, that overbearing mother, right? And suffocating the citizens, and the citizens are constantly trying to experience more and more freedom and live a more autonomous life. And then you have, and just like with any, like if a overbearing mother, like take like just for example, Norman Bates from Psycho, where like he could never let go of that mother. So there are going to be people that cling on to the state because they like that maternal feel. They like that safety that it makes, that it gives them, or the illusion of safety that they feel under an overbearing parent. But we can't let that dictate to the rest of us the way that we're going to live our lives. We have the ability and the right to step out and do things on our own. So in order to set these parameters properly, you must put stricter barriers upon those mechanisms that are involved in your children's lives. And part of that is to really restrict what the education system is teaching your children. Turn it into an education system and not an indoctrination system. Deal with only objective reality and what is objectively provable. And do that by getting involved locally at your in your local school boards, at your children's schools, and let them know how you feel about that. Like, no, like I what you should be teaching my children should not be the opinion of the educator or the teacher or the principal or anybody else. That this should be only what is objectively provable at this point in time. Now, when there are going to be like sciences that you're going to have to get into that, obviously are not, like, science is never objectively settled. It's like that's one of the things that drives me crazy when I hear the science is settled. No, science is never settled. If it's settled, it's not science. That's pretty obvious. Science is all about questioning and experimenting and trying to find the flaws in the new ways and the new technologies moving forward. But yes, so there should be these parameters that are put on these school boards and on these schools should be very, very stringent as far as I'm concerned. Because you're not going to get rid of the idea of public school tomorrow. But what you can do is get involved in the school district, get involved in the education system, get involved in your kids' schools, talk to their teachers, get to know their teachers, express what you expect for your child and for their learning experience, and make differences in that way. And I think right now it's a great time to move in that direction, because parents are becoming more and more aware. You hear more and more conservatives say that you're going to have to get your children out of public schools because they're being indoctrinated into this postmodern morality where everything's relative and subjective. And I think that's a good thing. That's hopeful. They're beginning to see what we've seen for quite a while, and they're beginning to wake up to the facts on the ground and what is actually occurring. And so, while it's possible to fight these harmful ideas with better ideas, that's what we should be doing to the best of our ability and to whatever extent we can, and getting involved in any way we can. And, as stressful as that is, it's worthwhile. It's for the future and safety of your children. But while you're being overwhelmed by these things, getting back to how I started this conversation, because I do have a point here, while you're being overwhelmed by these things and you're being exhausted, and I'm sure a lot of you are feeling burnout by news and headlines and all the bad news and stuff that that we see going on in the world, and the concern over food shortages and inflation and gas and all that. Hey, bugs, Skype. Sorry. How do you deal with these? How do you deal with this? How do you function? How do you keep it from putting unnecessary burdens on you? And because if you're a parent and you're absorbing all of these things, even if you're single and you're absorbing all this information and you're trying to take steps to better yourself, and you're trying to take steps to kind of ensure your own well-being and your own security going forward. The well-being of your children, the well-being of your family, the well-being of your wife. It can affect your relationships. It can affect the way that you're interacting with the people around you. It can affect your attitude. It's very easy to get nihilistic or black-pilled, as they like to say nowadays, as those damn kids like to say. And so you have to, how do you avoid that? And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. And that's why the episode is called The Best Thing I've Done All Year. And if you're wondering, the best thing I did all year was my two youngest sons and my parents came over to my house last weekend for a crawfish boil. And that was the best thing I did all year. Best thing I've done all year was just sit around, eat crawfish, and hang out with my kids and my parents. Best thing I did all year. I've been planting and building and raising chickens and raising ducks and collecting eggs and preserving eggs and doing all these things to prepare myself and my wife for a potential hardship. And still, the best thing I did all year was I spent quality time with my family. And so I think that in the modern age, in a time when things look like they're going to get bad, and I don't say this to be gloom and doom. I think things are going to get difficult, and they're already difficult in a lot of other countries. And I think it's only a matter of time before it hits the United States in a way that is tangibly affecting the way that we live our lives. What I would suggest, what I think is best, is as you're getting more involved in your children's education, in your children's lives, in your children's schooling, and putting yourself in that position to be a more effective parent, you're working on your communication skills. I think you should share a hobby with your children, whether it's starting a garden. Set aside a specific amount of time where your children don't leave the house and don't go to their friends or don't sit on the computer or don't play video games and don't sit on their phone. Everybody puts their electronic devices away, and you go outside and you start a garden, or you pick up an instrument and you learn the instrument with your children. You learn a foreign language with your kids, probably Chinese at this point. I would suggest learn Mandarin. Yeah, that might be good for the future of your children, is to learn Mandarin. But find yourself a hobby or something that is relaxing that you can do together, but it's also useful moving forward, and it's giving you a sense of security. So instead of taking the entire burden upon yourself, you're sharing the burden, and you're treating your children as part of the family, and they're a unit of your family that is useful and has meaning, right? Their meaning is not just to be a child and sit on their phone and be indoctrinated all day. But their meaning is to be a productive part of that family, and teaching them to be a productive part of that family, and to utilize their skills and their abilities. No matter their age, they have some ability, right? They can pick up an egg. They can dig a hole in the ground. I mean, give a 5-year-old a little shovel and a bucket and tell them to go dig, they'll be happier than a pig in shit, man. Kids love to go out and dig. They just don't know it anymore. Tell them to find some worms so you can go fishing. Bring your child fishing. But develop these common interests and treat it as a hobby and utilize this time to build these relationships and have conversations and communicate and teach. This is where food comes from. It's not, Hamburger Helper does not grow on the shelf in Walmart, right? Like, this is where food comes from. This is how we get our food. This is how it gets to our table. And if you're teaching, even if you live in an apartment and you just can do a little balcony garden, just take some time every day to nurture that garden and spend time with your child and learn. Even if you don't know what you're doing, watch videos together and read together on the projects, right? Learn new projects together. And therefore your child now has a very, special place within that family, and they feel like they're a contributor and have that meaning inside that family, and you're getting that quality time. And that quality time is so important. And this is how you're going to fight back against this indoctrination, is to have this quality time and have these open, honest conversations with your child. Because you might be really surprised about what your child thinks and what is being put in their heads. And how do you curb the amount of rebellion that a child acts out in their life is by being that parent that is constantly involved and the child trusts and knows that they can turn to and communicate with and not be judged. So if your child is honestly experiencing like any kind of crisis in their identity, whether they are gay or think they might be transgender, or they feel like they're being pushed to say they're transgender when they're not transgender, and whatever, you should know these things. You want to know these things, right? And so if you're opening up that relationship and like really, you're not only building for the future of your livelihood and your food and creating some sort of security in that way, but you're also building that relationship, and you're cultivating that relationship to an extent where there's a trust level, and that you can have that time and that communication with your child. And I would just make that a habit, but part of the rules got to be, you got to put down the electronic devices. And this is going to be a time that you and I, or us as a family, whether if you have multiple kids, maybe do something with each child. If you have, or if you want to do something as a group, but do something and put yourself back in your children's lives. As long as they are living under your roof, you can work on this. You can work through this. And so if you're having issues with them, maybe the best thing is to do something with them, is to make sure you're cultivating that relationship, just like you would cultivate the earth in order to grow food. You have to cultivate the child, and you have to plant the seeds, and you have to nurture and, teach. And that's extremely important. And so I think we really need to take a step back sometimes, and we need to look, and we say, all this stuff I'm doing, whether it's working or, growing food or raising chickens and raising ducks, all that's important. But what's really important is cultivating that relationship with my children, no matter their age. My youngest son he'll be 17, and his brother that came with him is 18. And, you know, my 18-year-old is looking at college, and I was like, are you sure? What do you want to do? What do you want to study? He's like, I don't know. I was like, well, why are you going to put yourself in a bunch of debt when you don't know what you're going to do? Like, why would you do that? Why would you take on all this debt when you're not even sure you're going to be making money? Like, shouldn't you have some sort of direction first? He was like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. It's like, why not try a trade school? Because the college is still going to be there. You go to trade school, get out of trade school, start making $60,000 a year or whatever. And in a couple of years, if you decide, all right, I want to go to college for this, you've discovered like kind of a path. You're kind of getting some experience and you're seeing things and you're like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Now you can go to college and you're making some money. So you're not going to end up in tons of debt. You can at least pay for some of it as you're taking care of it. And, you know, but cultivating that relationship, having that conversation with them to let them know, hey, like, yeah, why are we, while we're here just chilling out, like, what's happening? Like, talk to me. What are you thinking? You know? And, you know, I don't know if that's what he's going to do, but he's thinking about it. It's, you know, he's like, oh, yeah, well, you know, and it's not the first time we've had that conversation, but you just continue to, you know, nurture that relationship. And you got to have that trust amongst each other that you can have that conversation. Nobody's going to lose their shit and get offended. You know, if you're going to lose your shit and get offended, then why are you having the conversation? But if you're going to lose your shit and get offended, then there's probably something wrong with the relationship. And you need to go back and start, you know, back up some and try to figure it out and try to, you know, fix whatever's broken there, because there's an issue. And, you know, I'd say that this is probably the way that you're going to have to deal with things, because you're not going to be able to depend on anybody else moving forward if things get as bad as I think they're going to get. And again, it's not apocalyptic. I just think it's going to be rough and it's going to be hard. You might be seeing children move back to parents' homes and parents move in with children, and, you know, kind of a more extended family kind of thing. And if you're not communicating, if you're not able to work together to reach the same goals, to aim at the same ends, and to work as a unit, then you're gonna have some, you know, chaos and some struggle. And so building that relationship and cultivating those relationships and spending that time with family is extremely important, even if it's just having a crawfish boil. Maybe a crawfish boil isn't the most productive thing in the world. Everybody needs a day off, you know? And so, you know, I'd say the most important thing I've done all year was sit around, eat crawfish, listen to music, and talk with my family. And I think more y'all, you know, y'all are smart people. Find some creative ways to cultivate those relationships, involve yourselves in your children's lives, protect them against the indoctrination, and you know, create some security, some food security, some security for yourselves. You know, invest in gold with them or something, like buy gold coins with them. You know, just find a hobby that's productive and also fun that y'all can share in and enjoy each other's company and time. And it'll go a long way to better your life moving forward. You're not going to regret it. Oh man, I really regret spending that time with my kid. Bah humbug, you know? Yeah, that's not what that's not the way it's going to go. So, all right. Well, didn't quite get an hour out of it, but I did ramble for a while. So that was kind of what was on my mind. Just wanted to put that out there and apologize that there have been more episodes. But we'll see you next week.
slave. All your good intentions took you to your grave. Your pride is how they killed you. With the flag you wave just like a fool. They promised you a mountain, gifted you a stone. They demanded that you throw it into your neighbor's home, and then seize all that they worked for and give it to the throne just like a tool. Well, as we all just stand in line and glorify new ways of being cruel, seems to me humanity is not something that they're teaching us in school. They dumb us down all around, propaganda, their pollution. They set a cage up on the stage, a facade for all solution. They build a wall, block them all from this mental institution. It's insane. And they're crossing all their T's. They're fashioning their people to all wear beggars' knees. If you want a clean drink of water, well, you must say pretty please. It's all a game. As we all just stand in line and justify these crimes done in our names, seems to me authority and tyranny are both one and the same. Well, it's time to change the channel. It's time to set things right. Make them all rot with fear in their beds at night. Devour all their worthless souls and sacrificial right, just like we should. Of those who are to blame, and we'll stack them up like cordwood, watch them sizzle on the flames for good. Well, as we all just stand in line waiting for some kind of Robin Hood, our liberty will never be until our right to freedom is understood.